I know you've been here. You're so pumped. You can totally see that coaching is possible for you. You have all these ideas, but you don't know where to start. And so that's what we're diving in this month's live coaching audit. I'm joined by an amazing coach. She's owned a gluten-free bakery for over 20 years. She's a gluten-free living expert. And now she wants to take that passion and turn it into coaching because she sees the massive need that exists in the world. And so we talk about where do we start when it comes to transitioning a business model to really dive into coaching and mentorship. Hello, wonderful coaches. This is another live coaching episode. I mean, we were wiping tears before we even got started, but it's so crazy. I'm so excited to have Tina here. So welcome, first off.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what parts of the conversation unfold as we chat. But when I saw your application come through, I was kind of like, is she in the right place? And through conversation, we were able to figure out that you are on the cusp of just entering kind of this new world in the coaching space. And today we're going to talk about what's the potential of that whole entire business model, essentially. And I'm just honored that you are willing to share like this part of you and where you're at and where you want to be and help not just you learn, but everybody else who's going to be listening. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start here. Let's start with what you do now and tell us a little bit about what you do now, and then we'll talk about what you are dreaming of doing.
Okay. So right now I own a dedicated gluten-free bakery business. I discovered probably about 22 years ago that my body could no longer tolerate gluten, and just kind of the ride that it took me on, and some of the pitfalls and you know, just you're kind of lost. And again, it's evolved so much since then, but I really desired to create things that you couldn't tell were gluten-free. I wanted to change that adventure for everybody that had to go gluten-free. But yeah, so I currently have a gluten-free business. My business in Riverside flooded in 2020. So we were shut down and moved to Idaho. And it took me 2 years to find a place to build another commercial kitchen. And so that is what I'm currently doing.
Yeah. Okay. So you have this really beautiful background. Again, kindred spirits, gluten-free life over here, gluten-free life.
Oh,
there.
nice. Okay.
Yeah. Since I had my son Miller 12 plus years ago, my autoimmune shift happened, and I discovered, similarly. So I've been living gluten-free for years. And so it worked until it didn't, essentially, right? And so tell us more about this kind of coaching, mentorship business that you're dreaming about, or what brought you to kind of think about, okay, there's something else I want to chase after.
When I talk to my customers, some come in and they're just almost shell shocked. So for me, I've been doing this 20 plus years, so it's my norm. And I feel like it's improved so much. So I think anyone that gets diagnosed now is just kind of has an easy ride. But people come in shell shocked. They say, I'm so discouraged. I'm so confused. Like, I don't know where to start. I'm so depressed about it. And I just think I have the ability to connect with people. I have such a love for teaching people, for supporting people, for just changing their lives, making their lives better. And through this journey, I feel like I have so much knowledge to give, so much encouragement. People are having baking failures. And so I feel like my whole path is directing me towards pouring into these people and making a bigger impact than my little footprint that I'm doing here. And I'm not one that I hate cameras. I hate the video. I'm a good behind the scenes girl. I will make anybody shine. Just keep me in the background. And yet suddenly I feel this calling that this is what I'm meant to do. This is a purpose for me. I have no idea where to start. But listening to you, I stumbled upon your podcast. And like I said earlier, you are the voice in my ears while I bake these beautiful treats. I hear your voice. You are just this ray of sunshine. And like I've said before, you're just my girl. I am so blessed by all that you give to our community. And so this is the route I'm going. I have no doubt. It just feels like the most organic calling for myself. So
good.
That's where I'm at.
I'm honored by your words for sure. And you are so in the right place. I'm very pumped about this. Because one of the things that you have going for yourself when I kind of knew what we were going to be coaching on around is so many people struggle with what we would call niche drama. Like, where am I going to niche? And you have complete clarity around that. And so I'm always thinking about how do we position coaches that I get to work with as unique, right? I look at myself and I'm really like, my unique value proposition is that I'm a framework builder, right? I call myself a framework building ninja. It's what I'm best at. You're 100% an expert already in the gluten-free living space. And so you can be the gluten-free living expert. And I'm sure that's already a title you can easily connect to. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Yeah, or gluten-free living coach or gluten-free coach. The gluten-free coach is what I would actually say is the, because that word "the" in front of it is very bold, and
it is.
And it's also very powerful because you've been running a bakery, you've been living the life, you're modeling what you teach. I'm sure you have countless stories that you could tell. And I think by force or by choice, this is the direction of where so many people are living. And I'm sure people living or listening to this episode right now are already raising a hand and like, I need Tina in my life. I need to learn. I legitimately, Tina, have a client. She's been a longstanding life coaching client who is probably 3 years working with me, who had a traumatic event happen in her life and has had all these digestive issues. And I was like, she's got to get rid of gluten. Like, I just knew intuitively already. I'm like, she needs you too, right? So, and I think there's a lot of women in that menopausal range that experience and need that too.
Right.
So,
and that's kind of the wheelhouse of it seems to be like my age group, but I also want to inspire people through this walk of life. As we've talked, I've recently had a devastating tragedy happen as well. And this is why I feel like so propelled to get out there to make a difference to, we leave one legacy in this life, or we hope we can. And for me, I just want to make people smile and give them encouragement and give them options and empower them, right?
Yeah, so cool. So I think today what we're going to tackle is the question of like, where do I start? Because there can be so many ideas. We sit in this, like when we feel super inspired, we have all the ideas rolling around in our head. So where I would love to ask you to start with is what are you dreaming about when you think about the possibilities? Like, what kind of stuff has come up for you so far, just so I can wrap my head around like what you're thinking about?
So my first thing I think is, so I'm trying to move away from the bakery, but I don't want to take product out of people's hands. I feel like somehow I have been gifted to be able to master a simple way to make really high quality products. And so we're kind of moving into packaging our mixes really just for my California, Idaho people that already know it. And then I wanted to start shooting video content. So I just took a trip down the whole state of Oregon to see friends and family, and we shot content of like how easy the mixes are. So just getting in front of the camera and getting used to it. I really feel drawn to doing a podcast of just kind of the things to watch out for, just tips and tricks and like lifestyle stuff. So that's where I think I'm having a hard time. It's like, how do I package this into a coaching thing? I almost feel like I started out by kind of getting an audience and building, information and kind of building a following, and then starting to do ebooks or cooking courses, and then even coaching, say like startup gluten-free chefs that want to do their own gluten-free bakeries. Like, that's where I'm having a hard time, is like, where is my wheelhouse? Because I want something that's healthy, lifestyle, active, mental health, like, you know what I mean? That you're really hitting all the bases.
Sure.
Because gluten-free, there's a lot more to it. Usually it's something kind of a imbalance in your gut, right? That can lead to all these other problems. So sometimes going gluten-free is not the only answer. So there's so much depth to it that people get overwhelmed. So it's like, that's where I'm trying to figure out where I start. Like, what is my niche within my niche, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. So that kind of helps me. And so let's go high level a little bit and talk about, you kind of know this, but is to some degree in a product-based business, but when we're looking at a coaching business, which is a service-based business, what my brain thinks in is, of course, frameworks, but is also like big picture. So I'm thinking, and when I hear somebody that's just getting started, is what is your business ecosystem going to look like? And so what I mean by that is, where are people, potential customers that don't even know you exist? Where are they first going to encounter you potentially? Which was kind of the top tier of your ecosystem. And then next is, how do they deepen that relationship with you to see that you are an expert or to elevate your authority as an expert? And then how can they get into your paid stuff so that ultimately this isn't just a hobby, right? This is a profitable coaching business, and
it's a business, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a business, right? And so you mentioned a couple of things. First is a podcast, right? Which is great. And that's something that you can build over time. I see quite easily it can be the Gluten-Free Living podcast or whatever, the Gluten-Free Life or whatever. I'm sure if we were to do a quick search on podcasts, we would find that there's probably already other gluten-free podcasts out there.
Not mine.
Not yours. Not the gluten-free coach. And that's honestly how I would, if that doesn't exist, I love that up.
No,
gluten-free coach. Yeah.
I mean, things have been coming up and I've grabbed like a couple different domains because I'm like, yep, that is the direction I want to go. So I always secure my stuff, right?
Perfect.
But I love what you're saying. Yeah.
So then what we start to ask ourselves is there an ascension model that's built? So in other words, am I attracting the ideal client from the top of the ecosystem that would also buy into those offers at the bottom? And so it's like hanging out with you on your podcast, or for now, maybe social media as you build the podcast. But then we also want them to come in a step deeper, right? Where they're exchanging an email with you, whether that's, your 3-step guide to getting started gluten-free, or it's a webinar, the 3 steps, something like that, which ultimately then you can kind of pitch your services. So while we don't have to make any of those decisions today, we just want to make sure that you kind of see that flow and potential of those tiers that, ultimately should exist inside the business. Does that make sense?
Very much so. Because if you're not thinking strategically and you're not building it with that in mind, it's a hobby, right?
Yes, totally. And then, and that's why we're really trying to, my brain always was reverse engineer, right? Where do we want to go? What do we want that to look like over time?
And I think that's how I did my bakery business. I always looked at, what if I got, 250 wholesale clients? Like, do I have the production line? I have always built it with a growth thing in mind.
Yeah. So good.
So I get that. That resonates very good with me.
And the cool thing is you're not starting from scratch in a lot of ways because you have so much business experience, albeit it's, in an adjacent way, but you're bringing the raving fans into your work. You're already bringing in kind of a network and an audience. And there's probably people in there that could already use your coaching services, which is why I'm going to kind of move ahead to that. Like, those top tiers of your ecosystem are fantastic. They're just going to take some time to construct, right? It's going to take some time to launch a podcast, develop systems around podcasting. Easier and more accessible would be posting on social media, right? Which we could totally easily start doing now if you're not already. Second tier could be hosting a workshop. It's going to take you a little time to develop content. But I also think there is this opportunity to begin mentorship or coaching already with people that are around you. And I think sometimes we want to have, and not suggesting you've even said this, but just for those of you listening, it feels weird sometimes to bypass all of the quote unquote businessy stuff. But I like my people to make money and try out the coaching thing as quickly as possible so that they can clarify their niche and also get some ROI to reinvest back into the business or what have you. And so if I were sitting in your shoes based on the fact that you already have a network and you have established credibility as an expert, something I would probably do is just really sit back and build your framework, of course, if you haven't already, which we can talk more about, but would be to find a few clients that are struggling with just merging into living the gluten-free lifestyle and use them as your beta clients to test your processes and begin to play with what coaching even looks like. And from there, you might end up working with a man or a woman or a business or a bakery. And you ask that question, how do I niche within my niche? I kind of think that is discovered when you start to work with people, because then you're like, oh, I was really good here, but this didn't,
my wheelhouse.
Yeah, this didn't light me up as much. So how does that sound to you, or what are your thoughts, questions around that?
No, I think that's great because you have to kind of get your feet wet. I think you have to do a little testing out and learning really, because even just filming video content, I realized I need to hire an editor, right? There's just certain parts of it that I guess I need to outsource, or I need to, it redefines really the direction that I belong in.
Yeah, totally. And I think what can be super simple. So the brain goes to like, okay, I'm going to start coaching people. Am I ready? Am I not ready? What systems do I need? I think in the beginning, it's you don't really need anything, right? It's like, I need to hop onto Zoom, or if you're going to meet people in person. But what you do want to do is kind of define, your coaching package and have that framework that's going to guide the process. And maybe that first client is a complete beta client, and you just reach out to somebody that you already know you could support and just say, hey, I'm launching this coaching business. I really feel I can help. Would you allow me to coach you? And in exchange, I would just love for you to be like my first raving fan, testimonial, raving review about my coaching, right? And so energetically, there's not money exchanged, but there are, I'm sure like with you started the bakery, you probably were baking from home and gifting people your products. And they were like, oh my gosh, Tina, this is amazing. I want more, correct?
When I'd go to coffee shops and I offered a 2-month consignment program. So I would fill their cases every 2 days, and whatever didn't sell, I would take as the loss. They only had to pay their portion of what sold. And so we built up a following for them. We learned demographically what sold strongest for them. And so we built a very strong, So again, just I don't know. I just find so much draw for it. People, just even doing like a cooking class, like, filming, doing a baking bread class at somebody's house. And I've had people say, I'll donate my house, and, getting used to being, I think, in front of the camera, getting used to, I think where my one issue is I give away too much information.
Yeah.
So meaning I just want to spew it all out instead of saying, okay, this teaching session covers just this, and then we go deeper here and we go deeper here.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the structure you're talking about?
Yeah. I first off just want to validate giving away too much is a common problem in the beginning, because especially when you just have a servant's heart and you just want people to feel better, be pumped about your services. I totally did that too. I would have live workshops and the comments would be like, you're amazing. People would tell me all the things, and I was like, why isn't anybody buying?
Right.
And that was because I was literally just giving
it all away.
Yeah, giving it all away. So there's some strategy involved in that for sure. Yeah. But things like those free baking classes and stuff, those might be great bonuses or something. Once, you film those, that when your clients become your clients, maybe they get access to like the gluten-free cooking library, right? And it's some of like maybe the staple things, or you do some things on like baking alternatives. I think in this world, we can go up and search so many gluten-free recipes. I think where the paralysis, like my client that I mentioned that would benefit from you, she said to me, and luckily, I'm gluten-free, so I can answer these questions for her, but she's like, I still don't know what's in gluten. And she said, I just don't even know what gluten is. And it resonated so deeply with me, because I think the majority of the public doesn't even know what gluten is.
Sure.
And so that
became kind of a tagline. It became a negative. It's like if you go out to eat, they're like, "Ugh, you're one of those."
Yes, totally. They're so irritated by you. Like, and I even find myself being like, "Oh, what can I order that I can just like totally avoid, not even have a discussion?"
Having to say it. Yep.
Yeah, totally. But like, that's a great podcast episode, like how to order without shame, or what to say, or what to look. There's just so much content that I'm already like, oh, a podcast this, that, and the other. But coming back to full circle here is, how do I get started? And I think the first thing is kind of mapping out that ascension model that we talked about. In a dream world for you, Tina, what would that, process look like? So if you think about my business model, since you're familiar with it, the top of my ecosystem are my social media platforms, but my podcast, right? People discover me there. And then they're either repelled by me, they don't love what I'm talking about, it's not for them, they don't like my style.
Or they love you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's why we're together, right? Or they're super connected and they don't miss an episode, right? And then that deepens. And then typically they come into my world through a training, a workshop that I'm hosting that warms them up. And then from there, I'm making an offer on that training, and either they join the offer or they recycle into future trainings, hang out on my email list or something like that. And so I think I would just encourage you after our conversation today to just start by asking yourself, what could that look like for me? How could I leverage my strengths, which sound like, although you haven't done much video work, you feel pulled to that, right? Yeah. And that's exciting for you. Yeah. And how could I use the things that are my strengths to kind of pull people into my ecosystem? So that's kind of homework 1. And then homework 2, I really think, is that action of just, looking to see. You mentioned to me before you kind of built 2 business models or maybe 2 processes. Is that what you meant?
I did. Like I bought 2 different domain names, and they're 2 different kind of focuses, but I would like them. I would like it all under the same umbrella. I just thought, do I kind of test out this model and test out this model and see kind of, because I think you have to listen to your demographics. I think you can't just say, this is all I do, and either they love it or they hate it. For me, I just kind of, I don't know. I bought some binders, and I've just been writing content as it just comes to me, because trying to remember it all doesn't work for me. But so, yeah, I think I know which one I'm going to go, but I kind of have some love for the other. So yeah, I don't want to run 2 businesses. A lot of people have a hard time running one, but so yeah, just kind of.
Yeah. What I'm thinking as you're talking out loud is just that understanding that a lot of people, a lot of coaches will say 2 businesses. And what I think we mean by that is it could be 2 businesses, but also 2 offers or 2 different ideal clients. So if I think about you, it's the common everyday person who's gluten-free, but somebody who's going to run a gluten-free bakery, those would be very, different. They could be one and the same eventually, but different audiences. So the question is like, well, where do you want to start? And so if you took like a domain name like The Gluten-Free Coach, what could evolve over time is a variety of offers or an offering suite. So you might start by just focusing on serving, the 40-year-old plus woman who's moving into this gluten-free lifestyle and teaching and weaving in all those, kind of pillars of content you mentioned. And 2 years from now, you might be like, I really want to support the bakery people, or I just want to have, specific cooking, gluten-free cooking, or whatever the case is. And if you have the gluten-free coach, you could have multiple offers all under, that
I love that
name capacity instead of feeling like you have to have lots of domains. I'm a fan of buying domains though. Yeah. If you have an idea, they're so cheap, just buy them, because you never know. Because I speak from experience. When I was first starting out, Justin was like, well, just buy Amanda Walker. I was like, that's lame. I'm never going to want to use that. And so we didn't. And guess what? Years ago, and I was like, dang it. And now I would have to broker it for like thousands of dollars, and maybe someday I will. But I realized I just wanted to be known for me. And so if you're able to still buy your name, I would encourage that.
I used to have my name domain for years. Then I got remarried 5 years ago. So I may do it.
Yeah. I mean, take a peek or use the old one and see if it's still like whatever name you identify with, or maiden, like any of it. But so that's one thing I always say for those of you listening: buy your name and understand that will never change. The niche or the names of your offers will 100% change over time. It's just inevitably what happens as you grow into your business. And so now here I'm left with Amanda-Walker, which is so annoying.
I know, you have to say it every time. And so I just honestly, I put in Amanda Space Walker, like just put a space and you pull up.
Oh, okay. Well, good to know. And I didn't even know that.
So much of the search engines I've used, YouTube, I put in Amanda and Walker filled it. You were the top line.
Okay. It's probably it probably knows your patterns now. So, but I'm grateful. Well. But yeah, so just think about that when you're capturing those few domains. It's just to sit with it. And, rushing out to build a website isn't the first line of business anyways. Through working with clients, you're going to start to hear the messaging. You're going to hear their problems in their words. And so also just beta coaching someone is also going to be the greatest marketing move you ever make, because you're going to really hear their struggles. And then you basically build copy for your episodes of the podcast or your, website, whatever that case is. And so,
I love that.
So for me, I would just challenge myself and just for accountability, if I were in your shoes, I'd probably do something like put a date on the calendar for which I'm going to have started serving, my first beta client and just trialing it out and letting it be messy, etc. So thoughts or questions around that?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I get what you're saying, because it's tough. I feel, do I start kind of a blog thing that coincides? It's like, where do you start? And I think that's the perfect place to start, is just organically. And I do have those people that I already know that would be wonderful and would really appreciate the guidance. And then that gives me the ability to write content around their struggles. So I love it.
Yeah. And then I think it's different for each person. I was just on a podcast as a guest before you and I came on, and I think there's so much value in beta coaching and getting that practice in. I don't think, you've probably heard me talk on the show. My first clients, I charged $50 a month to, because I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I could help them. And in hindsight, was it a great profitability move? 100% no. But what it was a great move to build clients and to get experience under my belt and gain momentum. And so I always encourage one one client that you're doing for free in exchange for a testimonial. And then after that, just charge a nominal fee just so you get in the habit of asking for money. And that may not be a problem for you at all, running the bakery, or maybe
and this I'm the girl that wants to give the cookies away and, it's feeding everybody. But again, I think valuing your worth, right? Putting a value to it. And so how do you feel about even doing a subscription service? So you have, say, $10 or $15 a month with access to content. Is that a smart move in addition to coaching? Or?
So my gut reaction, again, this is my opinion, but the best way to be really impactful, I think, and be really intentional is to work with people and hear what their problems are and hear it from their mouth, and allow them to help you build that content, especially in today's market. I am in a mastermind with a few colleagues, and we were just having this conversation Monday around that there's information overload. We can pay so much, and so many people are buying into subscriptions and courses, and then they just sit on the digital shelf. What people really need is support. Our FBL, just interestingly, so we run, two kind of options in the FBL, an independent study and then an FBL live, where people can also pay for group coaching sessions. And we convert at 60% into that live. And what that tells me is that people want that support. Sure. People want the accountability around that. And so I'm not anti-subscription. I would just encourage you, to make money doing something like that, you need a large volume. And because you're just starting to move into kind of this new authority space around it, I think it would really behoove you to work with people. And as you go, that would be a great resource. Maybe you kind of have this kind of membership idea bank where you start putting in all the trainings that you could potentially build, and then you just build them as they, that's one thing that I am so glad that I did. As people were like, well, I don't know how to eat out. I was like, oh, I'm going to make a guide to eat out, or I don't know what to say in my emails, or I don't know how to host a webinar now in my coaching. So those questions create, the vaults of information that I provide to clients. And so I would encourage you, the fastest way to making money as a coach is one-to-one support. Sure. That doesn't mean it always has to be that way. It's just a great way to learn about your person.
What about doing kind of like a group webinar?
Yeah. So just to clarify the language, a group webinar would be a one-time training that could be either free or paid. So just to clarify, you could do both potentially, right? You could have a free webinar or a paid training. Those are great, but either way, what I would have is a next step for them to come into. Okay. So if you're going to leverage that, that would be kind of like tier 2 of your ecosystem. But then the question is if they love you, how do they keep working with you? And that's where I think, one-to-one coaching would be a great place to start. And then maybe you decide, I really love group coaching and I want to, support people in community. It's much easier to find one person at a time to coach than it is a handful of people. So that could be part of the evolution of your business as well, is like, okay, I really would love to move into this group coaching, which does open up like a whole nother host of, business tactics and strategy around launching a group program and getting people in the door.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I'm just, again, there's information overload. There's so many options. It's, trying to figure out what works and not get overwhelmed.
Yeah. So here's something to offer. It all works.
Hey.
That's the thing. But in the BDC, we talk a little bit about fixed components of your business and flexible components. Okay. So a fixed component would be you have to have an ecosystem to have clients. Sure. A flexible part of your business would be how you build your ecosystem. So I'll use my example.
Okay.
A fixed component of my ecosystem is that I host a podcast and I host workshops or webinars. The flexible part is I decide, I change the episodes. We play with different, types of episodes. In my webinars, we play with different titles. We try different things to see what's working. But a non-negotiable is we host at least one, organic webinar per month. Okay. And so the reason being is if I just do it one time, I've put a lot of work into one time, but I got to do it a whole bunch. It's just like baking, right? Sure. It took you lots of iterations to nail the perfect, bread recipe and so the same thing happens in, this business, no different is, okay, let's figure out, we're going to stick with webinars and we're just going to keep chipping away to figure out what resonates and what doesn't. And that's one of our fixed strategies, or a podcast. That's one of our fixed strategies. And so that is really helpful. I think a lot of people go really wide and they do something one time and it didn't work like I thought it would. So I got to try something different. So they're always in search of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which has them constantly starting over. And you're missing the opportunity to just hone in one strategy and get better at it.
Yes.
You rocked. Any loose ends that I didn't cover that you have questions around?
No, you've given me so much to think about and kind of start initiating. And so I thank you.
Yeah.
Very grateful.
Oh, it was such an honor to be with you. And as you guys are listening to Tina's story, you may resonate with some of the things. If you want to be coached live too, you have the opportunity to fill out our coaching application at amanda-walker.com/free coaching. We take one amazing listener a month and coach them live, much like we did Tina. And again, there's thanks for sharing your story, being vulnerable, and letting everybody else listen from the things we dove into today as well.
Well, and thank you for all you do. You make such an impact. I'm grateful.
Oh, thank you so much.